Welcome into Emerald and Lilywhite. This is episode 29. We are the official YouTube channel of Seattle Spurs, and we're here to talk Tottenham. I'm your host, Scott. You can find me at Scott G. Bird on all socials. With me today, Robbie at Robbie_Light, Robbie Light on Twitter. One of these days, we're going to get that person to give up that handle for you to make your life and my life as a host a little bit easier. But until then, you can find him again at Robbie_Light on all socials, bar Twitter, which is Robbie Light. Robbie, how's it going, man?
Good. This is one of the vacation episodes. I'm in my parents' guest room in South Carolina for the holidays. So hopefully the internet holds out here.
Sounds lovely. South Carolina is a wonderful place to be this time of year. And as we talked off air, got a good round of golfing, which I'm jealous. I do have my Tottenham golf hat on today, brought to you by Digital Spurs for all who are curious. A wonderful place to go buy Tottenham merch. Little plug to Danny there. But yeah, like I said, we're here to talk Tottenham. We got a couple of things to cover today, including a big one tomorrow against Liverpool, which we'll preview briefly. But I want to start with Southampton, go back a couple of steps. Big 5-0 win for Spurs, a very much needed 5-0 win, in my opinion. Obviously, it's well documented on this show that none of us are anywhere remotely clear thinking that Ange Postecoglou is not the right person to lead this team. But he's been under a little bit of pressure, at least in the media. No pressure from the board, we know, reportedly, right, which is what really all that matters. But all the noise can be quieted when you go out and thump Southampton 5-0, albeit a pretty weak team. But again, five goals in that match and 5 first-half goals, actually. We will flash this across the bottom here so the viewer can be reminded. It was 5-1. Madison scores, Son scores, Kulusevski scores, Sarr scores, and then Madison gets a second late in the first half, which was a fantastic goal, if I do say so myself. But first question I'll ask you, Robbie, out of all those 5 goals, and again, those 5 first half goals, which of those goals really stood out for you?
Well, this is probably not going to be the popular answer. And for context for the listeners, I didn't watch a single minute of this match. I had busy schedule. I had alerts on. I was getting alerts. I couldn't believe how fast the goal alerts were coming, but I've since gone back and watched the replay. To me, the best goal was the Sarr goal 25 minutes in, because that's when Southampton fans got up and started leaving. So that's my answer to that question. I saw footage of them getting up and leaving the match. As we've seen throughout the season, Tottenham will score 1 or 2 goals and keep it very close till the end. And it's a heart attack in a half, and we'll get to the United game, I'm sure. But yeah, the fact that fans left after 4 goals, it was 5 goals, and we kept it that way. I'm going to give it to the Sarr goal, because that seemed to be what broke the stadium's back and got everyone to leave. So,
yeah, honestly, you're exactly right. It was about 25 minutes in, right, when Sarr scored at 25, that everybody poured out. There were shots of just droves of fans leaving the stadium from outside of the stadium. My good buddy Andrew from the Tottenham Depot, great dude, great Tottenham fan, noticed that there was a wonderful food stand outside of the stadium. It said duck wraps, and his big takeaway from the first half was that those duck wraps looked interesting, and I may want to try one, right? But those are the types of things that we were seeing as fans in the middle of the first half, because Tottenham just laid down an absolute drumming of Southampton. Do you think, and we're going to talk more in depth about this match, but I'll also ask you quick, do you think that was more of Tottenham being really good on the day, or Southampton just being a really poor side?
I think both. And I think Tottenham's good on a lot of days. We just decide to turn it off after we've done a few goals, and we were lucky to play a side that couldn't ever turn it on. So we've gone up 2-3 goals pretty quickly in a lot of games, and then blown it or tied it, or held it off, but just barely. But I think it was beneficial that we were playing a really terrible team that couldn't come back on us. And the fact that we brought in the entire bench basically in the second half and didn't let in any goals. I know there were some close calls from the replays that I saw, but we didn't. So I think it's a combo of both.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think in the second half, we really did a good job of just holding onto the ball and working on our patterns and our passing trees, which I think is always a very valuable, beneficial thing to do when you're up 5-0. Maybe not 2 or 3-0 as we've seen from Spurs, right? But when you go up 5-0 at halftime, you really see the second half as an opportunity to, I hate saying it, but really just conduct a training session, right? And continue to tighten things up. So it's really good to see. And I wasn't even remotely concerned that there were no goals scored in the second half. Southampton does sack their manager, Russell Martin, following that match, right? So again, a really tough one for Southampton, but they're also a side who just got promoted. They did not win the championship, but they did win the playoff, and I give them a lot of credit for being a team who's super brave. And one of the things that I would point out about them, and Ange said this in a press conference, right? So this is straight from the mouth of the gaffer, but got to respect a side who says we are very unevenly matched on paper, but we're going to continue to play our style of possession-based attacking football. Ange had mentioned that if you're Russell Martin and you decide to take your first season in the Premier League via the route of we're going to sit back, absorb pressure, look for opportunities to exploit mistakes and pick up draws here and there and a couple wins and maybe finish 16th, 15th, 14th. Sure, that's all well and good, but what are you remembered by? No one's going to stand out as a manager in that situation. And again, this is all me paraphrasing Ange, but I got to give Russell Martin a lot of credit for his approach, and obviously didn't work out for him. He finds himself sacked, and now it's reported that Southampton has hired Ivan Juric, who was just sacked by Roma and is not super talented in my opinion. And that's coming from someone doing a podcast in Des Moines, Iowa, right? So Ivan Juric is 10 times the manager I'll ever be, but an interesting move from them nonetheless. But I feel for Russell Martin and wish him all the best. But yeah, back to Spurs. Wonderful win. I think we, as I said earlier, we really needed this one. There was just a lot of chatter, and anytime you can quiet the chatter, it's a super positive thing. But the other thing that I think is a big takeaway is prior to this match, we've been talking about it quite often on the show. Spurs were having a hard time scoring goals, and we come out and put up 5. And then again, as we'll talk about, 4 more in the following match against Man United. So that's 9 goals in the past 2 matches for a team that is struggling to score. Wonderful thing to see, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I guess I can't remember if all 3 of them, I know at least 2 of them in the City game or the United game, we could claim were own goals in a lot of ways. The third one was almost headed in by Basuma too. So I was like, we technically scored 7 goals against United. But,
12 goals in total in our last 2 matches, right? So
yeah.
No, I completely agree. I think all 3 of those goals were very much gifted by Spurs to Man United. Let's just jump into Man United, right? There's not a whole lot else to cover in the Southampton match. Again, 5-0 Spurs, a wonderful way to kick off the week. But Spurs come out in a very much different type of match, right? And still a very exciting and high-flying match, but different for very many reasons. On Thursday, we squeak past Manchester United in the Carabao Cup. We've talked about it a lot on this show. This competition is very important for this team. I'll never say the league is washed. I joke about the league being free hits and all that stuff, but we're only 5 points off top 4 right now, if I'm not mistaken. It could be less than that, but I believe it's 5. So the league is very much still alive. We sit in 10th place, and I think you look at any team in 10th place and say, oh, league's looking pretty rough. Maybe we invest our eggs in other baskets, but it's a super tight, it's a weird league this season, right? So the league's still alive, but all that to say, the Carabao Cup is super important right now. I mean, maybe my question for you off the top is where do you prioritize the Carabao Cup if you had to rank the 4 competitions we're still in?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, I think I would still put Europa number 1, and I haven't checked the standings enough, or I don't know enough about other teams to know how realistic is we finish in the top 8. I feel like the top 8 is still very achievable, but I don't know enough about the other teams. Yeah, Carabao Cup, I think super big deal. It's, the draw is going to be Liverpool, which again is unfortunate, but all the teams remaining are good in theory. So we got to beat who we got to beat. I would prioritize all cups. I mean, we definitely talked about this in an episode months ago about I was already throwing in the towel on the Prem in October. I think it was just let's just focus on the cups and realize that the Prem is just a mess this year. Every team is mid, if you want to use that word, for the most part, except for Liverpool. And I guess maybe Chelsea can start to peek their head out of the sand here. But everyone else is just a muddy pile of, maybe 2 wins separate us between either last or 4th, or, not last is way behind, but the bottom feeders are also like 15-4 are a couple points apart.
Yeah, crazy.
So I think it's just we're going to get what we're going to get out of the Prem. We don't have to abandon it, but I really don't care at this point. I don't want to lose games if we can help it, but if, finishing top 4 is of no consequence to me, especially if we can just win the Europa and qualify that way. Or what is it? Like if you win the Carabao Cup, you can get, I guess, not the Europa Conference League, whatever. We can get Europe another way.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's super important. I would put the Carabao Cup and Europa League like 1A and 1B, right?
Mm-hmm.
FA Cup behind that, and then the Premier League, as wild as that sounds. But yeah, I think it was a wonderful opportunity for Spurs to come out and put down the sword against a Man United team who has been struggling, but has also recently brought in a very talented manager and is starting to find a little bit of form or a little bit of solace, we could at least say, right? So Spurs come out super strong in this match. Across the back, it's Pedro Porro at right back, Gray and Dragushin in the center back pairing, Jed Spence at left back. Udogie was injured at the time, maybe coming back tomorrow, it sounds like, but was not able to play against United. So Jed Spence gets the start. Midfield with Basuma, Sarr, Madison, and then the front three was Kulusevski, Solanke, and Son. So a very strong lineup. It was evident that Ange is very much invested in this competition, right, coming out with such a strong lineup. I think it's a bummer for Brennan Johnson not to get a start in this match, but I think that Ange got it spot on with his selection. I want to talk about Dom Solanke here for a second. 2 goals in this match. The goal in the 15th minute, his first goal, was just, in my opinion, a good piece of finishing from a striker, just really a poacher's goal. He took it first time. It looks simple, but it's actually a pretty tough finish, in my opinion, right, to take that first time as well as he did. And then his second goal was fantastic. Runs in behind the line, times his run perfectly, gets, I believe, Lisandro Martinez to hesitate, and then Johnny Evans as well. So just a really, really wonderful goal from Solanke and the type of things that we expect from a $60 million signing. But what did you make of Dom in that match?
Yeah, no, I think I said it in the chat. I think when he scored the first one, it was like, this is finally the Dom we were promised of, like, he needs to be there to finish, to clean up, to tap in, that was way more than a tap in, but like he needs to be there in the right place so that when something happens, he's there. That almost happened in the Southampton game, but he like scuffed it or something. And then it went back to Kulusevski, who finished it. But like I don't know if it's intentional or not, but he seems to be a little bit behind the rush a lot of times. And that's why we see Brennan Johnson getting the goal or someone else getting it, because the cross is making it all the way across the front of the goal. But to me, that was a goal. It was like, finally, this is what we want to see, is like, he's just there to clean up the mess, to snipe it in where he needs to snipe it in. The second goal, I don't want to use this word lightly, but in the style of Harry Kane is how I saw the second goal, of like just cutting back across the goal, getting the defender to basically break his ankles in like basketball terms, and then just take the goal, which when he was kicking it, I was like, where is he going to kick this? And it was beautifully placed. So it was like, okay, I was nervous. I was like, oh no, there's not really much he can do here. I think in the replay too, he nutmegs a guy. Like, I can't remember if it was his goal or maybe it was Son's goal, or someone had a goal that went through the defender's legs before it got to the goal. But yeah, I would say shades of Harry Kane. I won't call him Harry Kane-esque, but that was the kind of goal he would always provide. He would break out quick, juke the defender to one side, and then curl it back in. So I thought they were both awesome.
No, that's a great shot. I agree. I mean, that cut to the right, near post, low finish, very, very much a Harry Kane style finish. And Dom's a wonderful striker. I mean, we don't pay that kind of money if we don't expect that type of goal. Like you said, we're starting to see, like you said in the chat, we're starting to see the Dom that we expected and brought in. And anytime you're a new striker, I think about halfway through your first season is when you really start to settle in. So it all tracks and adds up, in my opinion. And I think you're onto something too with what you're saying about him kind of making that like late secondary run. I think the Ange striker is designed to be a hold up player, almost like a deep lying forward, right? They are expected to drop back and get involved in the buildup and let those wingers be the spear of the attack. And he's really starting to figure it out. And I think anytime, at least in my opinion, I played striker, right? Anytime you're dropping back and getting involved in the buildup, it can be pretty challenging to time those runs correctly and and meet the ball at the right moment. And that's what I think he's starting to do really well. I never quite figured that out, but credit to Dom for being a Premier League level striker and a senior England international and just a wonderful player. So I was super happy for him. But the interesting thing, in my opinion, about this match too was that it really took us really 15 minutes until Dom scored to kind of find our footing in this match. I think we were under the cosh a little bit, as they would say, over across the pond for those first 15 minutes. Man United had us pinned back in our own half and almost scored a couple of times actually, but we scrambled and kept the ball down the net, and then that goal really flipped the match on its head. But were you concerned at all in those first 15 minutes that things could go the wrong way?
100%. I think I said it in the chat too. I think the first 3 minutes of the game, we were dominating and we missed a shot. Like we missed a really good shot. I don't remember who shot it. But after those first three, it was in the first minute or two that we had like an almost goal. And then from like minute 3 to minute 15, we were just getting dominated. Like the ball was just purely in United's hands on our half. And it said in the chat, I was like, what happened? Like we just totally lost the steam. And I know I've made that comment before, like for some reason, when we miss a really close goal, we just kind of pout about it, or we seem to lose a ton of energy after we hit the post or we do something like that. And that's I was very nervous after that happened because they were just, I said in the chat, it was like only a matter of time before one of their shots goes in. And it was lucky that we counteracted and got a quick one because that completely broke the trend there. And then, it took going to the locker room to come out of the second half flying again. So that was exciting to see because, what was it? The first minute or so of the second half, and then like the 9th minute of the second half, we had 2 more goals. But I think there was the weird opening 10 minutes. I was very nervous for a second there, but we were able to break that and score a goal, even though, like I said, I think we were still at like 30% possession when that goal went in. So we were still it was like kind of a quick counter almost on that goal.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you're saying. And I think Spurs are a team who can really benefit from scoring the first goal. I don't have the stats in front of me, but it feels like we give up the first goal more often than we score it, right? And I think us scoring the first goal is just going to open up the game a little bit more, especially when you consider the opposition is going to open themselves up a little bit more to try to equalize. And I think that's where Spurs can really capitalize because we're so good in transitions. And we're so good at finding open space in those transitions that anytime we score first, there's just, logically going to be more opportunities to transition. I think it really showed in this match because we were up 3-0, in the 46th minute. We went into the half up 2-0 and then came out. Kulusevski scores right away in the third half. And at that point, we're all thinking, all right, things look pretty good. We might be thumping Man United today. And just waltzing or dancing into the semis, not exactly what happened because Xerxes scores in the 63rd minute and then Amad Diallo in the 70th. I got to stop for a second and say Amad Diallo, what a player! Man United have an absolute gem in that guy. I think he's going to be one of these Vinny Juniors, Rodrigo type of players that we're talking about as a real threat on the wing for a long time, I think. But anyways, Man United scores 2 goals and finds himself back in it pretty quickly. I suppose we probably have to talk about Big Fraser now, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to single the guy out. I'm not here to pick on anyone that wears the shirt. And I frankly think Fraser Forster is a perfectly fine backup and will do a good job and has done a good job. But no way around the fact that he gifted Man United 2 goals, unfortunately. Let's talk about the Xerxes one first. What'd you make of that?
Yeah, well, I think we owe it to our pal Max, who's not here. I'm going to channel him for 3 seconds and say, Fraser Forster, one of the worst goalies in the history of soccer that's ever existed. That's something he would probably say. But those 7 minutes, absolutely catastrophic. We were complimenting him right before that, saying, you know what, the last few games he's been pretty solid. And then literally, I think within seconds of you saying that, that happened. I don't know he's not. We always have known that he does not fit this style. He does not play it out from the back. He needs to kick it deep. He's a goalie of a lost era. whatever you want to say, but he's all vibes. The players love him. So I guess that's why we've kept him around. But yeah, objectively, he's done a decent job other than these 2 moments, which were just terrible, inexcusable. What we also learned or saw, which I sent a screenshot of this, apparently Xerxes was in the goalie box when this pick was happening. So it should have been, there was no VAR. So that should have been something that was either Frazier should have noticed or brought it to the attention of the ref or delayed play by saying like, yo, what is going on? A lot of other goalies will make a meal out of that or time waste or complain, maybe in the heat of the moment, whatever. Very clearly, the second one was a direct result of the first one, just completely flustered. I think everyone was flustered. Again, I'm not in any way picking on Archie Gray. He's a 19-year-old who did a superb job playing out of position, but both times were him passing back to Frazier, and he even took ownership of it. We saw these, I don't know if you saw it, I saw it on my Twitter timeline, all these videos of him going up to players after the game, basically mouthing, I shouldn't have passed it back. And I'm not saying I agree with that, but he was trying to take ownership and be like, it was my mistake. I panicked. I passed it back to him. The second one was a little more egregious than the first. The first one, I think, was 1000% on Frazier. The second one was kind of like, I don't know, shouldn't have been passed to him. Maybe just move it forward, but it's a chain of things that all kind of came together. The fact that we overcame it, won the game, I think is amazing because we have been flustered a lot this season and then not overcome it and just kind of laid down and lost when a really bad thing happens or a really unfortunate thing happens. So I like the response, but took 2 goals to get the response, which is unfortunate. Never easy as a Tottenham fan. They never want us to enjoy an easy win, except for Southampton. I guess that was the outlier of the entire season so far. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's something I hope will never, ever happen again. It's unfortunate in the way that it happened, but certainly a fluke on the first one. And then after that, it completely was in everybody's heads and it just kind of snowballed from there. We're all very right to be upset, but I hope it's something that never comes up again, especially because we won. Had we lost, this would be an all-time hang it on the wall Tottenham moment. So thank God we did not lose.
If we lost that match, it would be quite a mountain for Fraser Forster to climb, I think. And obviously this is football, right? There's other things in life that are more gravitational than losing a football match, but it would have been a tough thing for Big Fraser to get past, I think. So I'm really glad we won. I also say Big Fraser made a couple really nice saves before this happened, right? So he's a great shot stopper, as you said so well. Maybe not designed to play the way that we play, but as you said, seems to be the best friend of like half the team when they were asked who their best friend in the squad was, and clearly an important guy to have around. I believe he's the 5th captain, if I'm not mistaken, after Son, Romero, Madison, Ben Davies, and then it's Fraser Forster, right? So he's an important guy to have around, and I think he'll continue to be important even if he's not on the pitch for this club. But it's been made very evident that he will be our goalkeeper. We're not bringing in another second-string goalkeeper. If we're bringing in anyone, it's someone to compete with Vicario, which I'd be very much open to. I look at Arsenal and what that's done for David Raya, and he's just playing out of his mind, and that's what competition does, right? But we're certainly not bringing in somebody to back up for the next 6 weeks because Fraser made a mistake. That's just not how the real world works. And I wish Big Fraser all the best. I also agree. I think the first goal is squarely on Fraser. The second goal, I agree with you that some of the responsibility falls at the feet of Archie Gray, and someone passed it back to Archie too. It was very negative football from a free kick in the first in the opposition's half, if I'm not mistaken. But as you said, he's 18 years old. 18-year-olds are going to lack composure compared to a 26, 27-year-old, right? And in that moment, you find a way to get the ball forward, especially after your goalkeeper just did something like that. Even when they haven't, you probably want to get that ball forward. But knowing what had just happened, not the best decision. Again, Archie will learn from it. All good. We won. The other thing that I'll point out, too, that is kind of a negative talking point, and I hate to do it for that reason, but I just didn't think enough of the team went and picked Fraser up after that first mistake. Sonny, I love you to death. You're such an important part of this club, but Sonny's got to go pick his goalie up as the captain in that moment. And the interesting thing is Sonny is the most likely to do that, right? He's just such a loving, good dude. And I was very disappointed and I'm not disappointed in Son. Things happen, right? But I was just disappointed in the moment that Sonny didn't go back and pick Frazier up. And frankly, nobody did. Defenders are right there. Somebody has to go grab Frazier by the ears, say, it's okay, my brother. Shit happens. Like, let's move on together. All good, right? No sweat. And that just didn't happen. And that leads to, again, Frazier being in his own head, and things start to fester and boil, and then the second goal happens. But again, water under the bridge, Spurs march on, because Sonny scores a freaking Olympico, which I haven't seen in a very, very long time, in the 86th minute. Shouts of a foul, shouts of Bergvall fouling the keeper. I think it's absolute bullshit. That is not a foul. Goalkeeper has to be able to fight through that kind of traffic. Frankly, we get scored on every third game because of that happening, right? Vicario is just pummeled in the box, right? So I got no sympathy for United. Wonderful finish by Sonny. At that point, I'm starting to feel pretty good. And then Johnny Evans / Yves Bissouma, we're still not quite sure, right? I think they did give it to Johnny Evans, but combined for a Man United goal in the 94th minute. At that point, it feels like all good. We're going to see this out anyways, but just an absolute just wild match, a circus of a match by all accounts. And I don't know if you caught Ange's comments after the match, but what a classic Ange Postecoglou thing to say, right?
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of discourse on it too, and people saying like apparently it is very hard for British journalists to pick up on his sarcasm or his tongue-in-cheekness, because that's exactly what that was. But yeah, I thought it was hilarious. And then, yeah, I sent you guys the screenshot too. I think it was the next morning where he said he's a naughty little boy. And I thought that was hilarious. I have that clipped for future use anytime we do something cool. But yeah, no, I was going to say the same thing about the Sun goal. I would be like, yo, everyone last year was just telling us, too bad, deal with it. Keeper's got to be stronger. So I was here to say the same thing of like, oh, cry me a river, dude. Like, that's all people were just hip checking Vicario all last season because they figured out they could. So too bad, so sad. I will say I kept watching the replay in slow motion. If Bergvall actually made contact with that ball, that was going 100 yards over the crossbar. Like, if he actually made contact with it, that was not going in. So thank God he missed it with his head, because his head was like above the post when he jumped. He jumped so high. I don't think that was going to go in if he touched it.
Classic Tottenham goal. Just again chaos, but wonderful for Sonny. I think Pulisic actually scored a Olympico this season as well, but they're quite rare. So really nice time for that to happen. We certainly needed it. And Spurs see themselves through into the semifinals of the Carabao Cup. We know we've drawn Liverpool. We know the first leg is at home. I'm actually pretty excited about that draw. I mentioned it in the chat, and I'm interested to get your take on this too. I think it's a good draw for us. And the reason I say that is if you get Newcastle United, sure, probably a decent chance to go through. And then you got Arsenal or Liverpool in a cup final. I don't feel great about that. If you get Arsenal in the semis, you got a really fucking tough two-legged North London derby semifinal against a team that's frankly better than us. And if you get through that, you probably got Liverpool in the final, right? And no one's going into that confident. But we drew Liverpool. If we can find a way through, we have two legs to do it, which I think is the really interesting thing here, right? You can set up a two-legged tie a little bit differently, right? Depending on how the first tie goes. I think in the first tie, you come out and just play your football and you see what happens and you make decisions from there. But if we get past Liverpool, we've either got a North London derby at Wembley or we've got Newcastle United. And I back us in either of those situations to at least go out and have a shot at winning, right? I'm not going to say that I straight up just back us to win either of those, but I back us to have a really good shot at winning. So again, I think ultimately you have to play Liverpool to win this competition at this point. You're either going to get them in this draw or in the final, right? And so let's do it over two legs. And I would love a North London derby in the final at Wembley, right? But yeah, what's your take on the draw?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think the only piece that's like making me slightly nervous is the fact that we play them tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're recording this on Saturday, so Sunday we're playing Liverpool, and it's the first time we're playing them this year, right? So like, I wish we were catching them kind of off guard with the first leg, to be like, they've never seen us live, they've never played us in person. Maybe we could catch them sleeping or something, but like, because I do think we very well could win tomorrow. I'm not saying we will, because I think we still have that, like, again, catching them off guard. But if we beat them tomorrow, I feel like we're not beating them in that first leg, because they're going to have the film, they're going to have the tape, they're going to be like, oh, okay, this is what we did wrong, this is how they caught us sleeping. But to be fair, we did beat City twice in like 2 weeks or whatever, so it's not impossible. But City's not Liverpool this year. But that's my only concern, is like, we're going to give them a lot of game tape tomorrow, no matter what happens in the match. But they're going to have a lot to prepare on us for. And I guess supposedly us in the same boat, we'll have a lot of tape to prepare on them too.
Yeah.
So anything can happen, I guess. I agree with what you said. Like, at this point in any competition, ideally the 4 remaining teams are all tough. So it doesn't matter who we play. It's all going to be tough. If it would be such a shame if Tottenham wins the Carabao Cup for the first time in 14 years and we beat Stockport County in the final, right? Like, people would just slag us for that. So, I guess we got to do what we got to do. Imagine our first trophy in however many years. We beat City, we beat United, we beat Liverpool, and then we beat Arsenal. That would be like the ultimate curse lifter, in my opinion.
Incredible,
so I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if you were going to break a curse, that would be one of the most like insane ways to do it. So again, I'm not going to hang my hat on it. I don't think it is what it is at this point. But again, if the first leg is at home, I hope Tottenham puts up 4+ goals, because it's going to come down to goal differential, right? That's how the 2-leg works.
Yeah.
So we better score as many goals as we can, because we're not scoring 4 at Anfield. I can tell you that much.
No, I agree. I mean, if we can put ourselves in a situation we're never going to set up shop and park the bus, right? But just play a little bit more pragmatically in a second leg, which we know Ange has done. He's done it against City a couple of times, right? So if we can just take a lead into that second leg going into Anfield, I think anything can happen. I also think with Liverpool, both in these 2 semifinal matches and tomorrow, it does favor us in the sense that we do really well against teams who want to get forward. I mean, their fullbacks in Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson don't even defend. I mean, there's another version of poor Onadogie. And again, we tend to do really well against teams that want to give us that space, because again, we win transitions with the best of them. Honestly, I think we're one of the best in Europe at winning balls in the middle of the field and winning opportunities to transition. And these teams like City, these teams like Liverpool, they're going to allow us to exploit that space in ways that Ipswich and, Palace are not going to do. And we saw how those results go. So I think there's opportunity here, and I'm hopeful. Let's talk about tomorrow briefly. The semifinal, will start to take shape in like late January. I don't have the dates in front of me, right? But I believe the first leg is late.
I think it's early January, so it's within 2 to 3 weeks of tomorrow's match.
Oh, you're right. I think it's January 6th. Now that I think about it, it's the first leg, and then I believe the second leg is towards the end of the month. But yeah, tomorrow we have Liverpool at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time for those of you who are out on the East Coast, like Robbie is temporarily, right? I personally am in Central Time, and I'm loving the 10:30 kickoff for a big one like this for sure. It's at home, like I said. Interesting thing for Liverpool is they're without Ibrahim Konate and Connor Bradley, who have been really, really good for them at the back, right? So they're a little bit depleted in defense, not near as depleted as we are. Andy Robertson does come back from suspension, if I'm not mistaken. And they've got a couple of guys. I know one of them. Let me just check my notes here briefly. They have Ryan Gravenberch and Darwin Nunez are both one yellow card away from being suspended. And so I think they'll have to just play with a little bit more caution. Ryan Gravenberch is their 6 and is the very talented 6. And anytime your 6 is card cautious, I think that's a super positive thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then Darwin Nunez as well, he'll lead their press and he'll have to be careful if he gets a start. But, I'm not going to lie, pound for pound, they're super talented. I think guys like Luis Diaz and Mo Salah obviously could potentially feast against a defense that consists of Fraser Forster, Archie Gray and Roger Dragoshin. I don't want to pick on anybody that wears a shirt, but we're talking Mo Salah and Luis Diaz here, probably Diogo Jota at some point too, who are very talented strikers and again, will utilize an inch of space that is given to them. And so we're going to have to be really tight at the back. But again, up top, I think we're going to have opportunities to score. And for me, it's going to come down to whether or not we take our chances, which has kind of been the story of the whole season. But yeah, what's your take? What are your prospects and your hopes looking at this match tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll keep it short, but I think to me, the entire match will come down to who we start at left back and are they fit. Mo Salah will either destroy us or he won't. So I would hope it's going to be, I guess at this point, I think Udogie's still probably hurt and or not 100%. So do we roll with Spence? Do we think Spence can shut down Salah? I think didn't win one of the games last year. Udogie completely pocketed Salah, I think.
Yeah, he did.
But to me, that's the biggest question mark. If we start Udogie and he's still hurt or he's slow and Salah opens us up, it's over from the get-go. Is the game, I can't remember, is the game at Hotspur Stadium or is it at
home? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. In that case, in my initial gut reaction is probably like 4-1 Liverpool. And I think if it's any other score, like if they don't beat us by at least 3 goals, they should be very disappointed because they're catching us at a very weak time. I don't know if that'll happen. Again, we have the ability to beat big teams. We have the ability to beat teams that play forward a ton. But as a Liverpool fan, I think they should be disappointed if they don't dominate us tomorrow. And if we get dominated, I won't even blink an eye. I'll be like, yeah, that was supposed to happen. That's fine. So anything else is going to be gravy to me. So I'm just going to look at it that way. Like if we tie 2-2, that'll be an awesome result. Like if we draw, that's great. But yeah, I think we have to start fast. Like we need to score first too. Like that's it's a non-negotiable at this point. If we don't score first, we look bad. So we need to score first, and we need to shut down Mo Salah, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well said. I completely agree with you. I think we have to score first, but I also fully agree that it's a free hit, 1,000% a free hit in this match. I think, like you said, if we get played off the park and lose, I don't think there's a soul on the planet who didn't expect that. And then if we win or even get a good draw here, I think it's something that you can certainly build off of and look as, a way to kick on. So, yeah, we're really excited to see what happens. We have beaten Man City before with Dragoshin and Davies as the center back pairing. What's up, pup? So anything can happen, right? And I'll be very much interested in this free hit that we get to watch tomorrow. The last thing we'll talk about here before we wrap, just want to keep it short today, guys. Just a quick Saturday episode for y'all. But the injury list is changing. We do know that Udogie is on his way back, right? We're still waiting on a couple of other things, and bear with me here. I'm trying to pull up the injury list here at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
Do you see it?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, I didn't see it on my end, but we're going to roll. Richarlison, Odegaard, Mikey Moore, Madison, Sarr, Bentancur, Romero, Van de Ven, Vicario, Davies are all out for one reason or another, either injury, suspension, or an illness in the case of Mikey Moore, right? Which it does sound like he's better, but it still needs a couple weeks of training to get back up to speed, which is totally understandable and would make a lot of sense, right? But it will be really nice to get Udogie back. I personally would be fine with Spence starting, but Udogie is super talented and just, bodies are good at this point. We saw Sergio Reguilon get minutes against Man United, which, again, not here to pick on Reguilon if he's a fine footballer, but tells you everything you need to know about where the squad's at. But, yeah, it's going to be a dicey next couple of weeks because of those things. In other news, which is relevant, Yang Min Hyuk, I believe is the correct pronunciation of our new winger, did arrive at Hotspur Way a couple of days ago from Korea, South Korea specifically. He's not able to play football until January 1st when he's actually registered to work in England, but has joined up with the squad and started to bed in. So another body. I'm not going to get into the Timo Werner of it all, right? And, there's others who are not here today that would probably take us there, but I will not. We shout to Max. We love you, man. But yeah, Max would have no problem saying it's time to ship Timo back to Germany and give Yang his opportunities. But I'm glad that we have another body nonetheless. And I'm looking forward to seeing him potentially against Transmere. I think it's who we play in the FA Cup, if I'm not mistaken. I'm probably not pronouncing it
no, what are
correctly.
they called? We were just talking about it the other day. I don't remember who it is. But I know they have a pretzel in their logo, so I'm hyped about that. There's a pretzel in there, and on their badge, they have a pretzel.
And we owe them one because they were
Tamsworth. That's what it is. It's Tamsworth.
Thank you, Tamsworth. So yeah, maybe Yang will get his debut against Tamsworth, and we're gonna owe him one because they sang the Tottenham Get Battered song when they were drawn against Spurs or whatever. So cool down, lads. Yang is coming for you, but just happy to have again Yang Min-hyuk in the squad. We need the bodies, and I think he's a super talented teenager who are excited to see play. But that's going to do it here at the Depot for episode 29. Like we said, just a quick one on this Saturday as we prepare for Liverpool tomorrow, and what is more to come after that, or what is forthcoming. We'll say keep in tune or keep your eyes peeled for more episodes. We're getting close to January, so we'll certainly be talking about transfers, be those rumors or actual signings, as we get into the month. And then again, the festive fixture list coming up, the Carabao Cup semifinal. We're gonna have a lot of football coming our way as Spurs fans, and so keep your eyes peeled for episodes from Emerald and Lilywhite as we cover all things Spurs. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. That really helps us. Blah blah blah. You heard the spiel from everybody on YouTube, but most importantly, it really helps Seattle Spurs, which is the whole point of all of this, right? We're here to grow the brand of Tottenham in Seattle, and it's all designed to feed into Seattle Spurs. So do Seattle Spurs a favor, like and subscribe to the show. Make sure you get down to the pub when you can. For those who don't know, we're going to go through them again. Up Infinity Ridge on the north side, we've got the Wits End. It is your home of the Seattle base, right? And then down south on the south side of the Sound in Puyallup, we have Rainier Growlers, and we have Cascades. Sorry, a lot of names to remember there, but Cascades is our home. Rainier Growlers is filling in momentarily until really the turn of the year. So back to Cascades here shortly, but get down to those pubs if you're on the north or the south side. Watch Spurs with some fellow Spurs fans. Tip your bartender as well. But for myself, for Robbie, for everybody at Emerald and Lilywhite, for everybody at Seattle Spurs, we appreciate it. Again, you can find me as Scott G. Bird. You can find Robbie at Robbie _Light and Robbie Light on Twitter. You can find Max at Going Limbs. You can find Chang at Alex Chang, X instead of an A. And you can find Keegan at Keegan McMurray, I believe, just all one word. You can find us at Lilywhite on all social media platforms. And most importantly, you can find Seattle Spurs at Seattle Spurs on all socials. Be sure to sign up for the Gmail blast list as well. If you email seattlespurs@gmail.com, we'll put you on the list. It's going to get you all kinds of information around Spurs, Seattle Spurs specifically, watch parties, holiday parties, all kinds of stuff. So you'll never be without info if you sign up to that email list, which is my point. So be sure to do it. Again, seattlespurs@gmail.com. And with that, we appreciate your time, and come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.